The coronavirus crisis has affected just about every area of our lives. Our jobs, our families, our religious practices, our abilities to travel locally and internationally. Almost nothing has gone untouched. As such, the world seems to have been driven into a time of serious priority reorganization. As the systems that we rely on to survive falter, the things that are the most important to us become clear. At the same time, the things in our lives that are not working for our benefit have also become crystal clear. Perhaps this is part of the reason that people's financial lives are also going through a serious period of reorganization, especially for those of us with income that has been compromised because of the coronavirus. This reorganization has become apparent on several levels. For example, Greg Petro, CEO of retail analytics company First Insight, told CNBC's Lauren Thomas that, quote, millennials' financial behavior is changing more dramatically than any other generation, and that they are, quote, going to cut their spending. Additionally, Business Insider reported that the same group is, quote, more likely than boomers to contribute more money to stock-related investments and more likely to move money out of their stocks. The coronavirus also seems to have brought more interest to cryptocurrency. Alex Mashinsky, chief executive and founder of crypto earning and lending company Celsius, told finance magnates that since the beginning of March, twice as many people have downloaded the Celsius app, which provides users with interest-bearing cryptocurrency accounts as well as lending services. Finance magnates recently sat down with Alex Mashinsky to talk about Celsius's mission to bring the next 100 million people into crypto, how the coronavirus is changing the financial world forever, and how women are essential to cryptocurrency's financial revolution. I'm Rachel McIntosh, and this is the Finance Magnates Blockchain Podcast. Alex, I want to thank you once again for your time. Thanks for coming on the show. We're really glad to have you.
Sure, and thanks for setting up this interview.
Yeah, anytime. So I know who you are, and I'm a fan of Celsius, but can you tell people who might not know who you are a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm an innovator, right? I started 8 companies, 7 before Celsius were all tech, telecom, internet infrastructure. So a lot of experience in innovation, startups, raising money, and the 7 previous companies I raised money from venture capital and private equity, and took a few companies public. But this time, with Celsius, I decided to do it as a community effort because I believe that basically, if we want to change the system, especially the financial system, we have to build something from the ground up that acts in the best interest of the community. And why not get the community to fund the project and scale it and put the community in the center of all the benefits and all the services that we provide. So we did an ICO back in 2018 to build an organization that always acts in the best interest of our users. And since then, we have over 100,000 people who joined us and over 600 million in assets. And we paid just over $12 million in interest to people from all over the world, over 150 countries. So in a world where there's no interest, right? You can't earn interest anywhere. Some countries have negative rates, like in Europe. We thought that interest income is the killer app for the blockchain. And that's what Celsius Network is all about.
Okay, so Celsius is, as you said, you can get these interest-bearing accounts. That's one thing that Celsius does, but it's also a lending company. Is that correct?
Actually, 90% of our users come to us just to earn interest. Only 10% of the users need a loan. So if you think about, I know everybody calls us a lending company,
yeah,
but mostly we're an income company, right? We're an interest income company, and Celsius does all the hard work of lending out the coins and earning income. But from a user perspective, all the user gets is income deposit in their wallet every week, right? They get more coins deposited in the wallet every week, and that's the magic. So we're not trying to help you with stocks or bonds or the things that you can get from 100 brokers or banks or anyone else. I mean, we're trying to focus on non-correlated assets. Our wallet has 3 buckets in it. It basically allows you to deposit fiat and earn high interest. It allows you to buy gold and earn yield on gold. So that never existed before. And allows you to deposit cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and earn yield on those as well. But all of those are things you cannot get from the traditional finance world.
Yeah, I'm about to sign up for this. It sounds great. So Celsius is based in New York. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have several offices. We operate out of New York. We have a London office. We have people in Israel and Serbia. So we're very broadly distributed. But probably our second biggest team is in New York. So
Okay,
and
cool.
I'm based in New York. So
Right. Can you talk a little bit about the protections, like, insurances or different regulatory measures that are in place that protect users of Celsius?
yeah, so we're not a bank. We don't have FDIC insurance or anything like that. So we rely basically on having very robust security
Hmm.
to make sure that none of our depositors are affected. And we use companies like Fireblocks and Prime Trust and others who are the custodians or the technology providers. Fireblocks, for example, has a $20 million insurance policy on their hot wallet, right? It's one of the very few companies that has the hot wallet insurance companies, because most of the other companies that tell you they have insurance, they're cold storage. But when you're lending coins out, the coins are never in cold storage, so the insurance is meaningless. So Celsius partnered with Fireblocks to really provide the hot wallet insurance. So while coins are transiting, either they're being deposited or they're being lent out, they are protected as well.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you for clearing that up. So, can you talk a little bit about you know, obviously, the world has changed quite a lot in the last 2 months with the dawn of the coronavirus. And we were talking a little bit about this before we went on the record. But I want to kind of ask you two questions. One is how Celsius has kind of been affected by the coronavirus, and also why do you think that the work that Celsius is doing at this particular moment in time is, especially important?
Yeah, so it's the coronavirus is the pin that popped the bubble, right? The debt bubble, and so we have hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of debt denominated all over the world, mostly corporate debt and government debt that effectively will never be repaid, right? I mean, so the problem we have is that as the economy, the entire world economy paused, right, to kind of deal with coronavirus, the value of all of our equities and everything else is compressed, but the value of the debt stayed the same. So the problem that the entire world is struggling with is not just the health effects of coronavirus, but also the fact that right before Corona, we were running as fast as we could and we barely paid the debt. And
Mhm.
now we're going to, even when we come back to normal is 50, 60, 70% of what 100% used to be, right? We know our restaurants are going to be half full. Our airlines are going to be half full, right? So what people I think are missing for what the world's going to look like after we reopen or after we go back to normal is that everything is going to have to adjust, right? And working from home, how much you make, how much people charge you for rent, all those things are going to have to adjust because the world is never going to be the same. And what Celsius is basically saying is that this whole idea that your money should be making money instead of you working for a living has completely disappeared from the planet. It started in Japan where they had zero rates, then it went to Europe. Europe had negative rates, and now the United States has zero rates, right? So basically, people expect nothing from their money. They just give their money to the bank, expecting zero earnings. And Celsius is saying, look, it's going to be much harder for you to make a living. You better save. You better make sure that your money earns for you because that should be supplementing your income. And frankly, the banks and other financial institutions earn so much for themselves because they give nothing to the depositor. And
Right.
Celsius is trying to reverse that. Celsius is basically saying, we're going to give 80% of what we make back to the depositor. So we're going to take away from the shareholders. I'm the largest shareholder of Celsius,
Mhm.
and we're going to give it to the depositor, right? So that is where Celsius is not just different than the traditional institutions, but it's effectively the opposite, right? And now we are in this mission to basically build up the crypto community, earn trust with the community that the decentralization and the blockchain are the right way to deliver these services, right? It's not, Bitcoin is not about speculation. Bitcoin is not about just buying it and hoping it goes up tomorrow. And what we're basically saying, people can build their financial future by buying these 2 or 3 different assets and then earning yield on them that allows them to really have a retirement plan, have a way to pay for their kids' college, right? And all the basic things that every one of us is worried about.
Right. So then I want to ask you sort of like, where did the inspiration for this company come from? You know, as somebody who is a serial entrepreneur, presumably, you know, working in more sort of quote unquote traditional financial and technical spheres, uh, what drew you to create something like Celsius?
So I mentioned that I did 7 companies before Celsius as a founder, right? My first company, Arbanet, was we created voice over IP, right? I wrote the protocols, I wrote the patents, built the first few gateways, and hundreds of millions of people joined and switched away from the phone company to use this free service, the same service we're using right now, right? So when I saw Bitcoin and the crypto revolution, I said, "Gosh, this is the same thing. It's just instead of using your bank and earning nothing or being tied up in the dollar, here's an opportunity for you to create wealth for yourself, and there should be huge adoption. Hundreds of millions of people should be using this." And so I joined the revolution. I bought coins. I advised a few projects, and I started basically in 2013. And at 2017, I was like, nothing is happening. I mean, we basically have the same number of people. You go to all these events, you know everybody. That is not a good sign. That means
Mm.
we're just a tiny little community. So I vowed to do something about it. And I said, okay, how do we bring the next 100 million people? Where are they going to come from? Most people are not speculators, right? So just coming to them and say, hey, buy Bitcoin and it's going to go up and just sit on it, hodl, that is a hard sell for most people. But when you come and you say, here, you can use the rails of the blockchain. You can use these things to earn yield, to earn income. You can bring 100 million people because every person on the planet needs more income, right? Needs that interest income that I'm talking about. There isn't a person that you go to and you say, hey, do you want to earn more? And they say, no, I'm already so rich. I don't need interest income. So today, Bitcoin is almost like a doomsday insurance policy, and that applies to maybe 1% of the population. And how about we add another product that applies to 100% of the population? So what Celsius created is something that we as a community need, because without it, we're not going to bring the next billion people into this revolution.
I love that you said that Bitcoin is a doomsday insurance product. That's great. But you're so right. Like there's the sort of belief, you know, amongst people who are already in the cryptocurrency industry in the community who have been there for a long time, that Bitcoin is, you know, eventually going to be the thing that everybody uses, you know, after the traditional financial system collapses. But for people who are outside of that community, that just sounds insane. So you're right. Like there definitely is a need. There's a place for these people who maybe want to sort of dip into the cryptocurrency world and learn about how they can benefit from it without going full-fledged, you know, Bitcoin is the future of money necessarily.
Well, look, so the reason we have stable coins and gold and Bitcoin and other coins in our wallet is because not everybody is taking the leap all the way to blindfolded jumping off a 1,000-foot tower and hoping the parachute opens up,
Yeah.
right? So for a lot of people, landing on a stable coin that pays you 9% is magic, right? That's all they want. They don't even want to hear about this magical currency or commodity, whatever you want to call it, called Bitcoin. So I think, but it's still using the blockchain, right? Stable coins are still using the blockchain and using Ethereum in this case. So I think the job is to deliver more more utility and less volatility. Today, unfortunately, like you look at this weekend, right? I mean, Bitcoin was down 12% in a few minutes. So volatility is what scares people. It doesn't help bringing more people in. When they see these kind of movements, they go, "Oh my God, what if it doesn't come back? Let me sell my coins," right? So, so I think what we created are these safety zones that people can land on. If you just want income, great. Here is a stable coin. We have 11 of them. If you don't like the US dollar, how about Canadian dollar or Australian dollar, or pound or whatever? So you can buy a coin denominated in your local currency or in a currency you like, a fiat currency, and you can earn high yield. Now, okay, good. You should have at least 5% of your portfolio in gold. Here is gold that yields 4%. That never existed in the history of mankind, right? We give you a nugget of gold. Every week, we put a little bit more gold on top of your existing gold. Usually, when you buy gold, it costs you money. You have storage fees, insurance fees, fund fees. We have no fees. Celsius has never charged a single customer a single fee.
So how does
Because
Celsius make money?
yeah, so our job is to generate yield. We keep 20% of the yield we generate, and we give 80% to the depositor. Now, people look at it and say, "Oh my God, this sounds crazy. Why would you do that?" And the secret is for rich people like me. If I give my money to a hedge fund, or if I give my money to Ray Dalio, the world's best money manager, right? The deal between me and Ray Dalio is that I get to keep 80% and Ray gets to keep 20%.
Right.
So that's all Celsius is doing. Celsius is saying to our depositors, look, you're going to give us coins or gold or stable coins, and we will generate yield, right? And we will give you 80% of that, and you don't have to be a billionaire or a multimillionaire to do that. Even if you have $10, you will have exactly the same benefit as someone who has $10 million. That is the revolution that Celsius is creating, right? Because today, each bank knows exactly how much money you have, and he knows exactly how much can they charge you before you leave them. And they charge you all the fees they can. They know that if they charge you just another $10, you would actually flip out and leave and never use the bank again, right? That's why the rate is $23.95. They know if it was 30%, then you would just you flip out. So think about it, right? I mean, when the bank lends you money on the credit card, it's not the bank's money. They lent you my money that they paid me nothing on. They turn around, lend you my money, and they keep that 24% all to themselves. I get nothing for it. Yeah. And all they did is they did an introduction. They're just a broker who introduced me to you. So normally a real estate broker charges 5%. A stockbroker charges 1%. The bank is charging 95% of the value, sometimes 100% of the value. And all of us willingly give him all of our money every month. So the lunacy is on our side. We are just crazy for keeping this arrangement going. So Celsius says, for the first time, Celsius says, look, there is a different way. There is an organization that acts in your best interest, that never will charge you a fee, that caters to everything you need, and that's how it should be. Right? So now if we get enough people to know about it and follow it, then there will be a lot of people who buy Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin will go up automatically. If we added 100 million people into Celsius, the price of Bitcoin would be 100,000 or more, right? Because all these people are going to be buying Bitcoin. Well, guess what? More demand, less supply with a happening, less people selling, prices are higher. So it's a win-win-win for everyone. The only people who suffer from this arrangement are the banks and the people who currently get our money for free.
Okay.
So I hope I answered your question, but
you absolutely did. Definitely. So then I want to ask, like, before we started this interview, you mentioned, like, since the coronavirus has started, that there've been quite a bit more user signups. Can you repeat that now that we're on the record?
Yeah, so we had the double, like basically since the beginning of March, twice as many people download the app, twice as many people are first-time depositor, and we used to have about $1 million a day in net deposits, so we would get maybe 2 million deposits and 1 million withdrawals, net 1 million. Now it's double that, right? So And a lot of these people are smaller deposits. So we're seeing more and more, which is exactly what the purpose of Celsius is. I mean, if all we created is another stop for the very rich to park their coins or gold, then we have missed the target, right? So what we're excited about is that from all over the world, people are finding about it. And look, the bar is pretty high. Like again, when I did voice of IP and I came to people and said, look, stop using AT&T. They're charging you $3 a minute to call Norway or whatever, right? Every country in the world was like $3 a minute automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Here, how about 20 cents or 50 cents a minute? People are like, sure, yeah. What's the worst that can be? If it doesn't work, I'm just going to go back to AT&T. But
Right.
with money, the bar is much higher. The trust level that you need to win with people to trust you with their money is much, much higher. So I'm really excited to see that people from all over the world, people are never met with and never spoken to, are trusting the platform because they realize that first, obviously, okay, they have a lot of other customers. There's no bad news. No one is complaining that Celsius hasn't delivered. We've paid interest now for 2.5 years every week. Okay, I'm going to trust them with a little bit of money. Let's see how it works. And then on average, they make 11 deposits on average, right? So they start with a small deposit, and they put a little bit more. And then like I get thank you letters every day of people saying, look, you really changed my life. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel now. I know how I can earn my way to retirement, or like I said before, paying. We have people paying their mortgage just with the interest from Celsius.
Wow. I mean, yeah,
Yes.
that's amazing. That's got to be such a good feeling that you at least so far you're setting out what you accomplished to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the like I retirement, that was the most miserable time in my life. I retired. I was like just driving my life crazy, and then I found this cause, and so I'm really doing this for the people. It is something that is especially during this corona virus situation, right, where no one knows what their future looks like, what their job looks like. And it's so important that we give people even 1 ounce of confidence, of self, like they can rely on themselves and not just rely on others.
Right. So earlier we talked about how Celsius is at least has an office in New York, but is it incorporated in the United States?
So the main company is a UK entity.
Okay.
So all of the deposits and loans are done out of the UK.
Hmm.
And we launched in New York State. So we partnered with because in New York you need special licenses and so on. But look, each state in the United States has its own rules, right? Like for example, right now we don't offer the stablecoin option in Texas because the state of Texas has its own laws. So we have a very sophisticated system that kind of looks at who you are, where are you from, what is your passport or driving license, and then it knows what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. And it's very important for us to stay compliant legally because the if we step across the line, even in a small way, the banks will trip us immediately because like every day I say bad things about banks, so they definitely don't like me at all. And
Mm.
Forbes had this great article a few months ago saying finally the banks have somebody to worry about, and it's true because in 30 years of fintech, show me one company that actually impact the bank, that put a scratch of JP Morgan, right?
Mm.
Nothing. All of the existing fintech, PayPal and Venmo, even though they're great companies, they all use the same rails. They're still all
Right.
relying on the banking system. And if you look at what Celsius does, we don't rely almost on any of this infrastructure, right? We created a whole separate infrastructure, and that's why we can earn so much and not charge fees and not do what every other bank does.
Okay. So so you mentioned that you have this system that kind of identifies, who people are, where they're from, where they're living, and therefore what they can do. Um, is there any particular group of people that you're targeting to onboard as new Celsius users?
Women, that's who we are
Hey,
targeting. The
okay. Why is that?
Yes, because the crypto community is 93 or 94% men.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to have a revolution, imagine having voice of IP and only have men talk to men. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but that is what we have in crypto.
You're right. Yeah.
And it's shocking. I didn't even believe it myself. Because when we launched the app, and I think it was June of 2018, we started getting all these stats from Apple and Android, and they would come 94, 95% men, because they tell you man or woman, like
Right.
the Apple tells you. And I said to my guys, it cannot be. This is just impossible that is true. You know, I was I was just shocked that this community is all men, and 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 it's because it started as this cyberpunk hacker, gamer type of,
Very pro
like,
environment.
right, and we never graduated from that. I'm just, again, I'm saying that 70% of the money in the world is spent by women, not by men. So how are you going to scale this and not include women? So we committed from the beginning that at least half of our team will be women. And Celsius is one of the very few companies in crypto that has more women than men. And I'm talking about senior position. Our CFO is a woman. Our head of business development is a woman, and so on and so on. So women in all key positions, right? And it's because if you want to bring women in, then you have to think like a woman. You can't think like a man and sit there and say, I know exactly what women want, you know?
We'll put a high-heeled shoe on it and everyone will love it.
If anything, men have proven that they can never figure out what women want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that is probably still the biggest challenge. We're doing great in the traditional crypto community, right? We're doing excellent there. Convincing new people or bringing women, winning their trust, is still a work in progress, right? And it's, again, not just Celsius; it's the entire community that has this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all ears. If you have any ideas on how to improve that, I'm all ears, because
Yeah, I'll have to give that a think. Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course, as a reporter in this space, I talk to 95% dudes, so it's, yeah, you're absolutely right.
yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned briefly earlier the Bitcoin halving. Can you elaborate a little bit on, what your thoughts are about that? Do you think it's going to affect the price, or do you think it's just sort of, is it already priced in? What's going on with that?
So first, let's put it in context. So the Fed is printing trillions of dollars, right, in a crazy amount of money. So they're increasing supply tremendously, right? The inflation, when people say, oh, inflation is 2%, that is not the inflation of money. That is the inflation of milk or the inflation of your internet services. But
Mm-hmm.
the inflation of money is something like 15% just this year, right? We've
Right.
added 15% worth of dollars into circulation. So when Bitcoin does happening, it's the opposite of what the Fed does. It's the opposite of what the ECB does, right? We are constricting the amount of new supply, while the Fed and everybody else is doubling or tripling or 10xing the supply, right? So that's what most people don't understand, because they think that, like, okay, well, it's just money. The Fed is allowed to print money, so what's the big deal? No, it dilutes you. It doesn't dilute the Fed. The Fed could care less, right? It dilutes you, the hardworking man who barely finishes the month and needs, needs to, use their credit card to pay for the rest of the expenses. So the happening is a huge event, and it's what makes Bitcoin deflationary. And for most people, the word deflationary is negative,
Mm-hmm.
because the government told us that deflation is bad. But for you, the person who owns the asset, deflation is a good thing. You wake up in the morning and you have more, not less.
Yeah.
Where with inflation, you wake up in the morning and you have less, not more.
Yeah.
So people have to, and no one would tell you that. It's like the best kept secret in the world is the fact that deflation is good for we the people, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So Bitcoin is the most deflationary store of value that exists today. There's nothing like it, right? And every 4 years, we cut the number of new coins that we're adding by half. So it's a huge event, but it's an event that doesn't happen overnight. It's not like okay, tomorrow morning, all the effect is in. It's an accumulating effect because starting tomorrow, I think it's happening late tonight or something
That's
like
right.
that, right?
Yeah, later today.
Right. So starting tomorrow, the number of new Bitcoin that is being rewarded to miners is going to get cut by half, meaning there's going to be less and less selling. And if we just add more and more people, if the number of people we add, let's say inflation of Bitcoin is about 2% now, after the half, 1.8%. If we add more than 1.8% of buying, then we are deflationary, right? That is the key effect here. So we will see an accumulating effect of an increase in price of Bitcoin because more demand, less supply means higher prices. So that is what's so excited about it. Is it priced in? Probably yes, it's all priced in. And
Mm.
that's why you saw Bitcoin kiss 10,000 and retreat, kiss it again and retreat. Like just a few months ago, it ran through 10,000 with zero resistance, right? It went all the way to 14,000, but now it can't break through that 10,000. So I think it really, today, it has to do with the rest of the economy. If the stock market and the rest of the economy does well, then Bitcoin will go up. If we have another collapse of the stock market, a lot of people are going to get scared and they're going to sell this asset class. So we may revisit the $5,000 and $6,000 dollar level before we go to new highs, which I still think we will have new highs, but we need enough time for this to accumulate. And that's what I'm saying. It's probably end of Q4 where we're going to go back to that 20,000 level.
All right. So what are you most excited about in the cryptocurrency space at this time? And this is a big, wide open question. You can answer it any way you like.
So I'm excited about a lot of things. I think first I'm excited for myself because this is a huge revolution. Most people don't understand it. And I lived through the internet revolution, right? I was there in my
Yeah.
20s and I got to be in the center of it and build great companies and work with great people. So being able to do this twice in your life is an amazing thank you. Okay. Thank you to whoever allowed me to participate in this stuff the second time. So I'm having the time of my life, right? I'm enjoying every minute. And, but here, the decentralization movement is upon us, right? Like everything is tied up for Bitcoin to be successful. Coronavirus and inflation, and the central banks making every mistake possible, right? All these things are good for Bitcoin. They're bad for us as citizens, but they're good for Bitcoin. So the opportunity for us to reinvent the world as a world that instead of focusing on who can earn the most money, focusing on who can create the most value, because that's what decentralization is for me. And using the blockchain as the engine that delivers that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is what's so exciting, right? And I think, the best people in the world are quitting Google and quitting Microsoft and are coming to work on DeFi and coming to work on all kind of amazing projects to invent the future, right? So seeing young people all over committing their lives to this stuff and not trying to earn as much money as possible and then some boring old company
Right.
it is really exciting because these are the people I want to work with, right? I'm probably the oldest guy in my company, right? And working with young people, helping them achieve their dreams, being the mentor or the guy on the sidelines who kind of help them with direction. And that's what gives me energy every day, so this is ours to lose. We are at the right place at the right time. We are writing history, we meaning the crypto community, right?
Yeah.
It's writing history right now. We either deliver or we don't deliver, and if we don't deliver, the banks and all the other financial institutions are gonna milk our kids for fees. They're gonna continue doing everything that they're doing to us and our parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, Before I ask you about what's on the roadmap for Celsius for next year, our editor Ben Myers mentioned to me that you grew up in Israel. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was born in Russia, in the USSR, in communism, and I grew
Yeah.
up in Israel in socialism. So I tried all three systems, capitalism in the United States for 30 years. So I'm definitely, I can tell you all about it.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty amazing to have that kind of a background, and actually, makes a lot of sense why you're doing what you're doing now. Uh, but
And look, capitalism is great for people like me. I'm
yeah,
part of the 1%. I came here with nothing, but capitalism does not work for 99% of Americans,
yeah,
right? So we need to find more balance. We need to find more balance between this, like, aggressive pursuit of capitalism and having the safety net and the respect for human life that
exactly.
you have in Europe, for example,
Yeah,
that you may not have in the United States.
that's yeah, that's part of the reason why I made the decision to pursue a life in Europe, was just because, the yeah, like it seems like the United States has been going in sort of like an unfettered capitalistic direction for a long time, but that's neither here nor there. Uh, so, but our editor was wondering, sort of your opinion, having being somebody who grew up in Israel and left and is now maybe seeing it from afar and interacting with companies in Israel. Why do you think Israel has become this sort of tech hub, particularly Tel Aviv? Is it the army? Is it education? Is it just something about the culture? Why do you see that?
So when I was there, I went to the military and did the track that everybody does. This was, again, 35 years ago.
Mm.
It was not a startup nation. There were few great startups, but it was not like everybody who graduated from the military went to do another startup, right? And you have amazing companies, Waze and all these great companies that came out of Israel that all of us use every day.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Israel is a little bit like the United States. It has immigration from about 150 countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a melting pot of ideas and people from all over. It's a very cosmopolitan. Tel Aviv is like New York, right? It's a
Yeah.
very cosmopolitan city. So nothing is, not everything goes, and there's a lot of open mindedness. Young people have very big aspirations. They come out with a lot of confidence out of the military, and they think they can change the world. And many of them do. So it's an amazing place that now is coined as a startup nation. And I think after Silicon Valley, Tel Aviv has more startups than I think any other place on the planet.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, Alex, can you tell us a little bit about what's on the roadmap for Celsius over the next year? Any announcements that you'd like to share? Where can people find Celsius?
Sure. So we have a release almost every month where we're adding features and capabilities to the app. You can just download the app on the App Store or on Android and try it out. You don't have to deposit $10,000 or something. You can just put $10 and see what happens, or put the fraction of a coin and see what happens. But our job is really to add more, like I said before, add more utilities. So that involves adding more coins. So we're adding more staking coins. We're adding more services that allow you to earn in different ways
Mm-hmm.
and use these coins also in easier way. For example, we have a service called SellPay that allow you to send the coins to anyone, including people that don't have a wallet. And that's the best way to bring people into this environment. So for Mother's Day, you should have used SellPay to send your mother whatever, a present, and get them into. That's how you invite them onto the blockchain. They don't even know it is a blockchain. All they see is, your son or your daughter sends you a gift. So what we're trying to do is bridge this complexity that I think a lot of DeFi companies are failing because they think that their job is to build stuff for the tech community, right? For the 95% of geeks who are the crypto, right? But if you want to bring the next billion people, they're not. Uh, Most of them are not geeks, and most of them are not men. So I think what Celsius is trying to do is really make it seamless and easy for anyone on the planet to kind of onboard, get the benefit, and then maybe explore and learn about this or that, right? What is Bitcoin? What is DeFi? What is a gold token? And these are the things that I think this part of, a lot of it is education.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the things that make people deposit trust with us, because really we're competing for trust. We're
Yeah.
competing, we're not competing with the bank on interest income. We're competing with the bank on who do you trust, who is acting in your best interest, who do you want to support? Do you want to support this community or do you want to support that community? So that is really the things that I think Celsius does very well. And we set the bar very high, right? We give 80% back to our community, which is almost like an invitation to the rest of the crypto world, saying, hey, do you want to be a toll collector just like JP Morgan, or do you want to act in your community best interest? So we set the bar so high. People call me and they'll complain, like, Alex, why are you giving so much? You're ruining our business. And I'm like, no, I'm not ruining your business. I'm trying to bring 1 billion people in. What are you trying to do? Milk your customers until they dry? So that is really the difference in the approach. And I hope that we're set the standard high enough that people, because our competitors already have to do the same thing, otherwise we'll be out of business, right? So we kind of force the interest income guys, even though we invented the category, now everybody's copying us, that's fine. But they have to deliver 80% to their community, right? And that's hard. That's the part that's hard. Your DeFi project, you have to give more than 80%, right? Back to your depositors or back to your participants. So, and that's how we win. We, the community, that's how we win against these guys, against the banks and the financial guys who have 99.9% of all the assets, right? Because that's what we're competing for. Where are the assets going to be at? They're going to be in Bitcoin, gold, and so on the blockchain, or is it they're going to be in some retirement account or a no interest income checking account,
Yeah.
which people seem to be happy with. That's what it is.
Just so normal these days, that's just like, that's what it is. You sign up for your first bank account, and it's a no interest checking account, and it's just become normal, I think.
Yes, I love, like, I use Banco Santander here on the corner to get my money out, and they charge me $3 to take my own money out of my own account. I mean, just like, so we committed to never charge anybody any fees, right? And that is a promise that as long as I'm alive, we will keep.
All right. Alex, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Okay, and you owe me answers on how to bring women into the community. I'm not letting go on that.
I am ready to have this conversation.